In this video, we are going to be talking about Quentin Tarantino's first film, Reservoir Dogs. Reservoir Dogs was heavily inspired by the Hong Kong movie City on Fire, and Tarantino planned to make the movie on a budget of $30,000, which he made from the sale of his movie script True Romance to a studio. But then, after reading the script, his friend convinced him to make it as an independent film with a bigger budget, shopping it around, and the movie ended up being made for a budget of $1.6 million. Reservoir Dogs, even though it is the first movie of Quentin Tarantino, mainly became famous after Pulp Fiction was released 2 years later. Many of the common cinema tropes which we associate with Pulp Fiction today were actually popularly introduced in Reservoir Dogs. This includes banter between the main characters and chit chat as a way of humanizing them. However, the banter is not just for banter's sake. It mainly functions to give us an early sense of who the people are and how they think. For example, Mr. Pink is played by Steve Buscemi, is the analytical, cold, argumentative person within the group.
I don't tip because society says I have to. All right, I'll tip if somebody really deserves a tip. If they really put forth the effort, I'll give them something extra. But this tipping automatically, it's for the birds.
And Harvey who is also one of the main characters, he is the more empathetic guy. And both of these characteristics of these people are called back later in the warehouse scenes, and they each behave according to their characteristics.
You don't care they'd counting on your tips to live? You know what this is? It's the world's smallest violin playing just for the waitresses.
You don't have any idea what you're talking about. These people bust their ass. This is a hard job.
So is working at McDonald's, but you don't feel the need to tip them, do you?
This type of dialogue is partly because of Quentin Tarantino's writing process. He mentions how he comes across and how he writes a movie in a recent episode of the Joe Rogan podcast. And the thing is, he does not have a story with dialogues in mind. He first thinks of a few scenes which make up the spine of the film, then the characters who will populate the film. And after that, he imagines himself as these characters one by one and tries to think in the way they would think, based on their personality traits. He just writes down what he thinks each person would say in that particular scene or in that situation. And the movie is basically lived through them. Yes. And there is another unique thing about the movie. It does not really show the heist itself, and only shows what happens primarily after and a little bit before the heist. And most heist films being about the heist themselves and how it was planned and all that. This is quite different. It mainly deals with the fallout of the heist. And not to be spoiler alert, slight spoiler, but the twist in the movie is actually revealed quite early in the movie to the viewers. And the rest of the movie mainly happens for the benefit of the characters themselves. We are taken on a journey through how the characters end up where they are and what happens to them, to the point that the twist, when it is revealed, is more of a shock to the characters in the movie than to us. This is another way in which Tarantino humanizes the characters and makes them a lot more relatable as human beings and as people with their own particular tastes and problems. All said, Reservoir Dogs is a movie which shifted the paradigm of Hollywood cinema and probably the greatest independent movie ever made.
And when I read that, I was like, that's my aesthetic. That's what I want to do. That is what I want to achieve.